yourself in, Lisa. Sit down.
All right, Happy New Year. First Freedom Thinking Community Group since 2019. Anyway, we've got a new person, Sarah. Welcome to the group. We will get you initiated very soon. But I just need to make a few announcements. I want to get it. It's a crap cult. It's a crap. But it is a. But it, no, it's not cool.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, we're working on cult status. We just need to wait to get our cult status number so we can put it at the bottom of the inbox. Welcome everybody online. Thank you very much everybody for joining. Hello.
Hey Jessie.
Hiya Jessie. Roy, we've got Canada, we've got Sweden, we've got Bonnie, Scotland.
Norway.
We've got Norway and
South Africa.
South Africa. Oh, South Africa. Oh, Leanne, hiya, love.
And Katie's from down south.
Katie, down south. Exotic down south. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Make a start now. Yeah, Mike, just pass that kettle off, mate. So, Sarah, I'm not picking on you, love, in the slightest, but most people, everybody else has been here before, and so I just want to say thanks for coming. We hope we find what we talk about valuable. What we'll be talking about is something very simple. It's generally something that isn't considered until we start to have it pointed out to us. Some people discover the nature of life unwittingly, they uncover it themselves, just stumble across it within themselves. And some people, like myself, have to have it spelt out numerous times until I suddenly go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Shit, that's simple. And as we start to find that shit that's simple, we start to find something that makes sense of not just a problem, but life. Can everybody hear us okay online? Cool, thanks, Jess. All of life. There's not often that people come across something which will explain to them what life is. One of the first things I like to ask people is, what is life? What is this thing we're undergoing? What is this thing we're born into? Where does it come from? What is this force of nature that we call life? What is it? Very rarely do I get an answer to that, other than I don't know. I don't know. I've never considered that. What is life? First question, divine mystery. First answer, divine mystery, should I say. Life's a divine mystery. So from the ground up in life, we are born into this, from this something, into this being. And then we walk through life thinking we know something about it. We perceive problems, we find answers, we fall in love, we fall out of love, we come up against hard times, we have beautiful times. And we start to think, as we get a bit older, we start to think we understand something about life. We start to know stuff about life. Oh, life's shit, life's hard. Life's always difficult. I'm mentally ill. I've been told I'm mentally ill. I know I'm mentally ill. I know what kind of person I am. I'm a strong person. I'm a this kind of person. I'm a this, I'm a that. We start to think we know something about it. When we go back to question one, what is life? It throws up the next question: how can we possibly know anything about life until we truly know what it is? And that's what this conversation is about. It sounds like a very abstract conversation. It sounds like a very, you could say, bullshit, pointless conversation. Why are we talking about that shit? I've got problems. Let's talk about my problems. But all of our problems stem from this singular point. So to start to gain understanding into that singular point is to start to understand life. What do human beings fear the most? That they do not understand. What we do not understand, we fear. The future, other cultures. You see it on films, aliens come down. We don't understand the aliens, kill them. Scared, fucking get rid of them. Let's get rid of those things. We do it with other cultures because we fear. But there's something beautiful that happens when one culture starts to understand another culture. It suddenly becomes less mystical and mysterious and fear-filling, and it allows them to then connect, fall in love. And this is a conversation about connecting with life and falling back in love with it. Because in love, there are no problems. Ed and I sat down and had a conversation the other day whilst you were splitting wood and I was trying to fix up my chipper. And we spoke about the nature of love. In love, there is no judgment. Nobody looks, when you fall in love with somebody, when you truly fall deeply in love with somebody, that individual can do no wrong. You'll defend them. You don't see a single bad point in them. You just connect. So this is a conversation about helping find more loving life. The majority of humanity is walking around in the opposite end of the emotional spectrum, which is fear. Scared of the future, scared of themselves, scared of people, scared of finances, worried, anxious, nervous. Now, when I came across this person, I was deeply anxious, deeply worried, deeply depressed, deeply angry. But the moment I realized, I started to gain insight into what is life. What is this life stuff? What is it? What is this game of life? What is it? I started to wake up. And I always remember the time saying it was like a birthday. I remember saying close to the time that it was like, I feel like I've been reborn. And I used to call the day I woke up my birthday. It's like a birthday. It's like a birthday. It's the day I truly engaged with life because I no longer feared it, because I realized what it was. It's just left me free to connect and experience more love, acceptance and understanding for everybody and myself. Not all the time, but a shed load more. And so this tonight is a conversation that is as much psychological as it is spiritual, because the two are one. It is a conversation about what is constant in life. It's a conversation about what connects every single living being in the universe, what connects every single piece of matter in this universe, what connects psychology to science, what connects religion to science. This is as much scientific as it is spiritual. And it's really very simple. and there's nothing to get. It's quite a difficult thing for people to really get their heads around, is that, well, nothing to get. Why the fuck am I here then? I've just driven through the rain. But there really isn't anything to get. And there's nothing to get because everybody's already it. So we'll be talking about it tonight. Quite like the word it. It doesn't come preloaded with any idea of or feeling state, or it doesn't come preloaded with judgment. It doesn't come preloaded with an identity. Because the moment we give things identity, we create the duality and separation. So we'll be talking about it tonight. And we're going to have to be using language. But please understand, the language is not it. The words are not it. Words are noises, which we have to learn. They're just noises. Noises. That's all a word is. It's a noise we learn to make. Like every other creature on the planet learns to make a noise to communicate a message. They communicate in words too. Birds don't sing, they communicate messages. We call it singing. They're talking. But the word is not it. The word is a guide, it's a pointer, in the same way as the word pen is not the plastic object. The word is a noise, the object is material. So understand that when we say pen, we're talking about this. Not what we have preconceived notions and ideas of what we think pen is, but the actual object. So when we use other words throughout the night, please understand that the words are merely a guide to something that everybody already is. Everybody on earth, and we've worked in many different parts of the world, and we have seen people from all different walks of life, cultures very different to our own, suddenly go, oh, even through translators. Oh, how have I not seen this before? How did I not know this was true about life? This is true. And when we find truth, we know it. We know it. When you find truth, you cannot help but go, oh, it was so simple. As in magic eyes. You know, like magic eyes, as in, you know what I'm saying when you say magic eye, those pictures you stare at, and eventually this thing goes, and you go, oh, how did I not see that? How long have I actually been seeing that for before I actually recognize I saw it? It's like that. You look in this direction long enough, you will start to see that what we're talking about is true. And it is the answer to every single scientific problem. It's the answer to every single psychological problem. It's the answer to what unites all religion. You realize it's a singular thing because all are born of the human mind. So the place to start looking for truth isn't anywhere in the world. It's not in books. It's not in words. It's within our very own mind. And this is what this is a conversation about. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to believe. There's nothing to, there's no mantras. This is purely an understanding. When you start to see the nature of mind, you start to see the nature of reality. Because again, the two are one. You start to recognize the nature of mind. You start to find the answer to what is reality. You start to wake up and realize really, really simple things. And it's always simple. It's always simple and it's always obvious once you've seen it. It's so obvious once you've seen it. But this isn't anything that anybody can give anybody. Nobody can give this to anybody simply because there's nothing to give. There's nothing to give. Everybody's already it. We're talking about what we are. Doesn't matter anybody's background, doesn't matter anybody. One of my favourite people is a lady who sat not too far away from where I'm looking right now, who said to me, I won't get this, I'm thick. I think it was 2 calls later. We've never had another. So it doesn't matter what IQ, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where we're born. It doesn't matter if we're male or female. It doesn't matter if we're blind, deaf, it doesn't matter. Everybody is the same thing in disguise. So we'll be talking about that thing with the hope that at some point we start to see it within ourselves. A space within our own consciousness through which reality is able to take place. This is not something anybody's ever been taught to do. Nobody's ever been taught how to create reality. This is a function of the universe. We are all beings of the same universe. This is a function of the universe as much as the sun, as much as black holes, as much as the planets, as much as the trees, as much as the water, as much as the rocks. It's just the nature of life. When humanity does not see it, it creates mayhem because it lives in fear. When human beings wake up to it, there's this magical transformation that takes place within them. And it's one of love, understanding, wisdom, greater choices in life, freedom in life, true freedom, unbound freedom I'm talking about, not freedom that is confined in any way, but true freedom. It helps people find presence in life, to be in the moment. You know, everybody's trying to be in the moment. He talks about being in the moment. There's books written about it. Naturally, we find more gratitude to life, more gratitude for what we have, because we're present. And all of this comes from a quieter mind. A mind with far less busyness and noise running through it, and shoulds and shouldn'ts and cans and cannots, rights and wrongs and goods and bads. They're all part of an illusion of life. So when we start to see the nature of reality, we start to realize the nature of it, the illusion of life. Most people don't know life's an illusion. Reality is an illusion. So they will undergo the experience of importance and the need to be great and the best and put themselves under so much pressure and I need this stuff, and we start to consume more. We require more from life and we never find satisfaction because ego is never satisfied. There is really nothing to do except just be here. And just listen. And if something starts to resonate within ourselves, cool. If we hear something tonight that just kind of, something in there, cool, leave it alone. But cool.
I was just going to say, when I came across this, because I was shy and insecure and didn't think I was good enough, I didn't think I had an ego. I had no idea that my ego was one of, I'm not good enough, I'm shy, I'm depressed, I've got an eating disorder. I didn't see that as ego. I thought ego was someone who loved themselves and was loud and extrovert. I didn't realise that ego was just a description of all the ideas and beliefs we have about ourselves. And I think it was, I remember that the first day of learning about this, just sitting there going, wow, I've actually got massive ego, because I was so full of belief and I was so limited by my mind. And like I often say it, but the first 3 days of learning about this, I couldn't remember very much of what was said. I didn't understand what was spoken about. But there was something like that Dave was saying that wakes up inside you, like you know there's something true. You know that the person is trying to point you to something. And there isn't any words to it really. We do our best in words to describe and to point, and often we'll tell stories and give examples. But there isn't words for what we're trying to point to. But I do think there's a recognition inside all of us, because it's what's always been present from the moment we're born. And I think it seems that it gets covered up. And I know that I was told that it was going to take years to sort through my problems and years to untangle things, and I'd learn to cope. No one ever said to me that my problems were created from the mind. The problems were created through thought, belief, and that one new thought later, a whole new experience is born. And actually that had been true throughout my entire life, because all of those things that I labelled myself as didn't exist when I wasn't thinking about them. So the moments when I was with friends enjoying myself, or they often give the example of watching a funny movie, like where is all our problems and our issues and our character when we're just watching a movie? And we're like not really aware of our surroundings, we're just like watching a movie. And I described it afterwards, it's almost like I'd gone from being a victim of a world and a past and an experience and where I was born and my family and things that I thought were wrong, to recognising the only thing I was ever up against was my own mind, creating stories that I believed and didn't know were stories. So the identity I created had limited me so much in life. Like I didn't think much was possible. But then I'd also then my other belief was that change takes time. Change takes time. It takes a long time to change. It takes a long time to get over things. I've been in psychology and therapy for about 10 years when I came across this. And I saw why I'd been there for so long. Because all I did was talk about my problems. What's wrong with me? What happened in my past? This and that. And I gave so much attention and energy to what's wrong in life. No one had ever said to me, okay, that's what's happened. How do we move forward from now and see life differently? Like, what's happening? How do you relive that? How does that come alive for you now? How can you think about something that happened 10 years ago and get the feeling of it right now? Like, no one talks to me about the power of our mind to create a reality for us now. No one had spoken to me in terms of my shyness and people. Like, but how comes you can freak out in your room about something that's going to happen in a week's time, like an exam or a job interview?
You're standing up to speak at conferences.
Yeah, like no one had pointed out, like, how comes you can get terrified and anxious laying in bed? Like, where does that come from? And in my mind before, I thought it came from the job interview or speaking at well, not I would have spoken at a conference then, but the idea of public speaking could have me like absolutely anxious, even though I didn't need to do public speaking in my life. Just thinking about it would make me anxious. So you start to see that when you believe that you are affected by a world or affected by people or affected by your past, you will live like that. The more that you see that the only thing you're affected by is the way that you think, it frees it up. Like we're born to have new thought and think again. And like you can see as young children, we create characters, but they change really rapidly. Like we're into this toy and then next week we don't like that toy, we like this toy and this kind of clothes or this kind of food. Like we change our minds constantly. And then at some point it's like we start holding on to some of those things as if they really are. No, this is me. This is my character. I'm this kind of person. But it doesn't get pointed out to us that, well, what were we before all of that? And it's described, like when we work with kids, we say, like, you're a blank canvas, you're a blank screen for any movie to play out upon. And you've got lost in like a really scary movie, or you've got lost in this kind of movie. Like I know people that have kind of come across this and go, God, I always have to be the funny one. I thought I always had to be the funny one, and how tiring that is. So it doesn't even have to be a so-called problem like depression or anxiety. It could be this idea that we have to be someone. And it's like, you can just be in the moment with whatever shows up. And that's all we've ever got. But I thought, because it's New Year, new me, I'd love people that have been before, if anyone wanted to share something that's impacted them through learning about this, if anyone's willing. I might be you.
Oh God,
I don't know, I can't remember.
Mate, if this was a bidding war, you'd have just you just bought some. Sorry.
Okay.
When you've been away for a while, when you come back tonight, I just feel that it's like the right time again to sort of renew it and perhaps listen again. You know, I don't know if this fits in, but I used to worry a lot, and I had a lot of not feeling good enough for everything else. But a few months ago, I fell off a ladder, broke my arm and my leg, and I think I saw Lisa, and I was telling her. And I think you were a bit amazed because I was laughing about it. Normally it'd be, I broke my leg, you know. But I went to hospital, was it 11 o'clock at night? And they put a plaster on my leg, and I was absolutely howling. I just saw it all as funny, whereas you would have been upset, wouldn't you? And we got outside in the car, well, they couldn't get my leg in the car. I'm not going to get my leg in there. They put the plaster from me, and I couldn't lift it.
Oh.
Anyway, they had to keep me in. I was on one of those trolleys till 4 in the morning. We were just having a joke and a laugh with the nurses. And when I went on the ward, I was enjoying it. Because I thought, well, I'm having my dinner brought to me, hot drink, you know, come and fan me. But I just saw it as a bit of a joke, like fun instead of worrying about it. You know, Frank had to make his own dinner. But
No, that's not funny, is it?
Would you have seen that differently, do you think, a while ago?
oh yeah, I don't think I'd have thought, oh, poor me, I'd gone into this, you know, but I'd have been right upset, thinking, no, you know, I want to be at home or worrying about what's going on and what I should be doing, but I didn't care. I'm just like
someone else in the same situation might have taken that differently. Thought, oh, this is horrible.
yeah,
You know, I can't believe this has happened. This is massive influence on my life. But the only thing that's changed that situation is the person, is the thought.
yeah,
And that's created an entirely different experience for them.
yeah.
It's
so
always funny, someone
different.
else is like, this is a nightmare, you know. You're both in the same situation. You could be led in the bed next to each other, the same injuries and the same accident,
Yeah,
you know. But things purely because you're thinking about it. Might be, isn't it?
So simple.
Yeah.
nurse came to ask me on these big needles, I think they're doing this so you don't get blood clots. And I said, what are you going to do with that? You're not sticking that in me, are you? And she started laughing. She said, yeah, no. Anyway, she did it, and then she come and I didn't expect she was doing another one. Anyway, 13 injections later, Frank had to do it. But I just laughed about it and had fun with the nurses. I thought they were working so hard, and there was people across far worse than I was, and you just see everything different. I mean, a lady opposite, poor thing, she was crying, she was in agony. So I didn't moan at all. I just saw the fun in it, kept them happy. But it's just changed my attitude. That's really positive, you know.
That's
So
beautiful.
thank you. It was lovely.
Thank you, love. I think what you're describing there, love, is something that most people. Hey up, Christian, lad. Most people don't, when they don't understand, like we talk about, when people don't understand the nature of life, it's like it can be really easy to see life through a negative point of view. I was speaking to one of our Swedish group this week, and this lady's had an experience of just pure emptying, and she's found it deeply uncomfortable.
She said she enjoyed it for the first couple of weeks, and then it was just like,
Yeah.
now
So
what?
this is a lady who has spent her entire life trying to figure out the future, working towards the future. She's been on our course, and she said, I feel like an empty glass. And I said, oh, right. She said, it was really nice to begin with, but it hasn't, I don't, you know, when I spoke to her a few months ago, she was like, this is getting serious now. You know, I'm not feeling motivated to go out and do stuff. I'm like, don't worry. You're all right. You're all right. I understand that. I've been through that personally myself, where you feel so empty of thought and fuck, this is uncomfortable now. This is unfamiliar. Back to that unfamiliar, we start to feel fear again. And as though we need the familiar to be safe, although the familiar is completely made up. And this,
Can I ask Dave how you got through that? Because I feel the same thing. I always used to have to be doing something. I was always have plans and I was always doing something. And this last couple of years, I just haven't felt the need to do anything. But like I used to, I was still.
do you do stuff?
Yeah.
You'd go to Goa in 2 weeks for 2 weeks.
I know you
To do
were.
nothing.
You know, we're trained from such a young age. We are trained from such a young age to be intellectual and to work towards something. So what do? We continuously live in a future, somewhere to get to. That's not where reality truly exists. That's not where life truly exists. Life truly exists here in this very pleasant present place and now. So the majority of people have never truly experienced presence, actually being where they are. The body's always wherever it is. But how often is the mind lined up with the body in the place? For some people, it can be deeply uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. But this lady, after time, she said, we spoke after 2 weeks, and she said, it's funny, she said, now I'm starting to get filled full of creative ideas. So for her, she said, I've started writing poetry, I've started doing painting. I said, is this new for you? She said, yeah, this is new. It feels really nice. Okay. And I spoke to her a couple of days ago, and she's kind of coming out of that a bit now. I said, the nature of experience, as everybody is testament to, is that it does not stay the same forever. Okay? We can all think back to the hardest times we've been through in our life, and they pass. The nature of reality is one, it is not static. It is an ever-changing flow of experience. Reality is an experience. It's not out there. Reality does not exist outside of consciousness. Reality cannot exist without consciousness. Reality is created by consciousness.
I love this new saying. Sorry.
And so, as I held up this empty glass, well, it was half empty actually because I hadn't finished it, but it was metaphorical. This lady took one look at it and she went, "Oh my God." She said, I look at life. I always look on the negative side of life. She said, I've viewed that experience as negative, that emptiness. She said, I saw it as negative. She said, so as long as I thought it was negative, it appeared negative. Correct. Correct. Whatever we think is how things look. So we'll come back to that reality is an illusion thing. Why is it an illusion? What is true about reality? Well, we all know that we can look around this room tonight and I see nobody's come dressed the same. We've all come in different clothes. We all like different clothes. We all like different music. We all like different people. We all want to do different things in the world. We want to do different jobs. We all got different interests. We all have our hair cut different. We all find different people attractive. We all like different cars. We'd all like to live somewhere where we would like to live, where perhaps the next person wouldn't like to live, but they would like to live. And they'd like to live there, and I'd like to live here. Some people love hot, sunny days. Some people really can't stand. Some people like the long, drawn-out nights. Some people love the long summer nights. And you start to see that the world is not the reality that people encounter. If the reality existed outside, then everybody would like the same person. Everybody would want to do the same thing because it would be reality. It's there, it's reality. Everybody would like the long drawn out summer nights. Everybody would like the same music, like, oh, come dress the same. Why? Because reality is an external thing to which we're subjected, so therefore we would be powerless over it. But when you see that reality is a state of consciousness that we were born into, this consciousness from which we are born creates a reality. And it creates reality with the power of thought. Thought, as we think, things appear real. He's a proper wanker, that fella. Fucking, he's a proper wanker. He looks like a wanker. I should be pointing in that direction towards it.
Went for the
What?
best.
Yeah, you did learn from the best. Wow, he's a fantastic person. Is he? I don't think so. Can't stand the fella. You start to see that there's evidence for this fact everywhere, that reality exists in the mind, not outside of it. There is nothing in the world that affects thoughts, because thoughts are not of this world. They're not of the physical matter. They're not of physical matter. The power of thought is not something that is generated by the brain. And for testament to that, we need only look at plants. Plants, with their ability to find light. Venus flytraps count to 2. You've got trees that are aware of one another. How can they be aware of one another without thought? When you walk through a woodland and look up, they don't grow into each other like a tangled mess. They are a cooperative, aware state. Yet there is no brain. Thought does not require a brain, neither does consciousness. It's from that space that all matter truly comes into being. And so as we start to understand the nature of life, we start to realize that reality, the only thing that what we call our life is what we call reality. How would you know you were alive if you were not experiencing a reality? Whatever the reality, how would you know you were alive? You see, the two are one. Neither can exist without one another. They are two are one. So as we start to understand the nature of reality, we start to understand what is life. And you start to wake up and realize that there is not one reality out there. There is no real world. Come back to the real world, Dave. Come back to the real world. Whose real world? Whose real world? I know my real world looks very, very real, but I know to Jenny, her real world looks very, very real, and sometimes they come conflict with one another. We don't see the world the same, and it becomes really obvious, and we have an argument. But when you start to get this sense, you start to wake up and you realize that we are the creators of our own reality. This is the gift of life. This is the secret of life. The thing that Jesus was pointing to, the thing that Buddha was pointing to. Go within. Go within. If you want to find the answer to life, go within. Stop looking outside. Stop looking in books. Stop looking in videos. Stop looking to other people. Go within. Because within you will find that you are this conscious state that as it thinks, so the world appears in front of it. I'm not saying so the world appears, I think of a cup, there comes a cup. What I'm talking about, however I perceive the cup, is how it appears to me. Do I like this cup? Yeah, it's in better. Do you like that cup? All right. Some people love the cup. Somebody actually bought this cup because they thought it was nice. It's all right. Some people will think that's a crap cup. Too big, too little. Some people won't be able to get the fingers in it. I need a bigger finger one. It's too big for my fingers. You see, whatever we think about the cup is our reality. Whatever we think about the world is how it appears. Whatever we think about ourselves is how we appear. And this is the thing. The only thing that ever creates isn't a world, it's thought. The world of creation cannot exist without thought.
Like you said, it'd be a constant for everyone, but it'd be constant for you as well. But if you've got the capability to like change your opinion about a person or an object, then how is it ever real? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't like him, maybe he's a bit of a knock, you know. When you first meet him, he comes across a bit like this. Then you get to know him, and like, actually, he's a really nice guy. Well, he was never any of them things. That's just how you're perceiving him, and your thoughts have just changed. And like you say, it'd be constant for everyone if that was actually the case. But everyone's chopping and changing all the time and sharing opinions. You know, you can base your opinion on one person from what another person told you about that person before you meet.
That's right.
Which is bizarre.
And they will.
And they will.
Person
is that thing. They are a dick. Well, no, that person's told you they're a dick, and now you haven't even met them yet. Then you meet them, and oh no, they'll actually be nice. You know, so they weren't ever in any of them things. You know, man,
I was going to say before, I've really noticed that new saying that seems to be around called type 2 fun. Has anybody heard of it?
No.
One of the guys who I was doing a navigation course with, he said, "Oh, I love this. He said, it's like type 2 fun." I went, "What's type 2 fun?" He said, when you've had a fucking wild day on the fells and you get back and go, "That's brilliant," but you'd rather be anywhere else at the time. And today, I had a fucking wild day on the fells, and I honestly would rather have been anywhere other than on the top of people
At the time.
going over today. At the time, my day was absolutely brilliant. I've actually had the best day ever. Like, I'm going to go to bed tonight and I have had a fucking brilliant day. When I got blown over up there, I landed on my face with a big heavy rucksack on my back. I'm lying there, I can't even stand up in the window thinking, what the fuck am I doing this for? And then now, it's totally different. So there is no truth. There just is what shows up when it shows up in that moment and you feel it as it comes in. And that's it.
The truth doesn't lie in what's created. The truth lies in what's creating.
I was going to read what Anna wrote when I asked the question. What she's seen is that I cannot ever find what I'm looking for through transient, ever-changing thinking. Really knowing that's not the place to look. It's kind of what we're speaking to. Like, our thinking's constantly changing, and we look for truth there and wonder why we can't find it. But it is like you don't know what you're going to think next. Like, when you're in it, it's totally real, and it's shit, and you wish you were anywhere else. And you're like, it was amazing, I've had this brilliant day. But you see, like,
we rewrite history, don't we?
Stuff just shows up. It just shows up and we just live out of it. It shows up.
I know you said don't draw anything on the board.
I was only joking because I didn't want to tell the computer.
So I'm just going to draw something that Susan and I, and Jen were. Susan came to see us a few weeks ago. She's one of our friends from Scotland, and we went up to Buttermere and Crummock and Loweswater and had a bit of a drive around the lakes. And we were talking about how when we look at life, I spent a lot of time in psychology, not on the learning about it, but on the service user side of things. And they were always studying my experience and wanting to talk about the past. And it was only when I saw the illusory nature of this stuff was it that I found freedom. And I can see why people, and I know psychologists, and I deeply love and have a lot of respect for the people who tried to help me. I am not knocking these people in the slightest, but their methods are based in creating the impression that what somebody undergoes as an experiential reality as their life is real, has any more substance or basis in it other than a conscious state thinking. So I was talking to Susan, and we were talking about our trip around the lakes. And we spoke about how we went to Buttermere. You're going to need your help in a second.
You are?
We're going to need your help. But Buttermere is, for people who don't know, Buttermere, Crummock Water and Loweswater, is that the correct order? Yeah, they're connected. So here we go, we've got this Buttermere. And then that goes on to Crummock Water and then on to Loweswater before going off into the North Sea.
Loweswater's a bit more up to the left.
Whatever. I've got enough stuff. And here we have a spring. And this spring is on.
Absolute
Honestly,
hieroglyphics. What the hell are they?
What's it called? It's not.
It's not with the town, no, not with haystacks.
It's on haystack.
Kirk Fell.
Haystack.
You think
I am going to get a map out, and I am actually going to study this just to make sure I get this right. And so, as we come down the river, you come across things like waterfalls. You get flat plains.
There's a car park at the bottom of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Mum. You get further waterfalls, you get more flat plains, you get waterfalls, you get rapids.
Sheep.
Sheep, yeah.
There was a fight, there was a battle. Up from the water.
Can we draw that now?
No.
Horseback.
And so, when we go and visit these places, when we go and experience Buttermere, Crummockwater, Loweswater, we've given them separate names. We like the separate identities. Buttermere is separate from Crummockwater, which is separate from Loweswater. This isn't true, as it's fairly obvious, because they're connected. And so as we were speaking to Susan, we spoke about how it can be really, really easy to get mesmerized by life events. Life events, you could say that Buttermere is an event. I need to find out what the hell the river's called, that's what I really need to know. Buttermere is an event of the river that starts in Haystacks, and the side of Haystacks, a fell in the Lake District. Buttermere only exists because water pours into it from this stream. And as it entered into the basin at the bottom of the valley, it created a big flat plain of water, which we call now Buttermere. And then Buttermere then flows out of the bottom, and it undergoes other events such as waterfalls. It goes through other events like rapids, nice flat plains that you get on rivers. You get meanders, you get curves in it. And all along we go and visit the waterfalls. We go and visit Buttermere. We go and visit Crummockwater. We go and visit Loweswater. We go and visit these events as though somehow they are some kind of, we look at them as though they're somehow some kind of separate event to the whole. But this is an illusion. These events, what we call Buttermere, Crummock, Loweswater, the waterfalls, the rapids, the flat plains, the meanders, these are just, this is just river.
Is it the Greta?
This is just water. No, the Greta also, Kevin. This is just water. What appears to be the event of Buttermere is simply the river expanding out wider, filling up, only to continue into Crummock. We're so mesmerized by these events that we forget to have respect for where this all starts from the spring, high on the side of Haystacks.
Gates, Garthdale, Beck.
Thanks, Jim. Gates, Garthdale, Bath, step that the stream. We forget to have respect for where it all is born. And in doing so, we see separation. We see, oh, I really like Buttermere, that's really beautiful, you know, you've got all the fells and stuff. Crummockwater's starting to get a little bit less upper class, tarny, meary, watery, lakey area. By the time we get down to Loweswater, well, it's all the same thing. Loweswater cannot exist without Crummock, Crummockwater cannot exist without Buttermere, Buttermere cannot exist without the flat plain, the rapid, the waterfall, and the spring. So we're forever looking at life events without ever noticing the spring. And what we're talking about tonight is the spring. The place from which our reality bubbles up as an experience, continuously bubbles up as an experience. Sometimes we really, really love the experience we are experiencing, and sometimes we really, 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 really don't. Sometimes we really, really love the experience we're experiencing, sometimes we really, 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 really don't. But they're all born of the same place. What creates what looks like a beautiful experience in life is the same thing that creates what looks like a terrible experience. Now, please don't confuse the notion that you saying bad things don't happen in the world. You're saying people don't die. You're saying wars don't take place, you know, corruption and terrible things aren't happening in the world. No, I'm not. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm not saying things don't take place in the world. Things do happen in the world. Things take place in the world. But the only way we can possibly experience them is via our mind. We take away the mind, there is no experience. There is no life. There is no reality. There's nothing there to experience, to create the reality of experience. So when we start to get a respect for the water, you start to see that all of this is one thing. Lowes Water, Crummock, Buttermere, the waterfalls, what look like separate events in life are always the same thing. The waterfall is the same thing that created Crummock Water. What creates the waterfall creates Crummock. What creates the flat plains creates Buttermere. What creates the meanders creates Lowes Water. What creates Lowes Water creates the estuary. When we separate things off, when we see in a dualistic manner, when we fail to recognize the power of thought creating, we will see separate events, and we will undergo the experience of some events being right and some events being wrong. And in doing so, we will quite often undergo the experience of suffering, depression, anxiety, worry. But when we start to wake up and realize that there truly is only one place that reality exists, and it's within our mind. Our mind. I cannot see Ed's reality. I cannot see the world the way Ed sees it. It is totally and utterly impossible. I've lived with Lisa all of her life, all of mine bar 2 years, so 38 years. And Lisa and I see very different worlds. And Mum gave birth to both Lisa and I. We've both got the same genetic makeup, as though, apparently, as though. I'll show you my sister. She's the Indian kid. Well, it's up to you. I don't know. I'm just saying she just looks very, very, very different. Apparently, we have the same genetic makeup. But you see that even genetic makeup does not determine the way we see life. The way that I see the world is not the same as the way my mother sees it, and the way my mother sees it is not the same way that my sister sees it. We all have our different likes and dislikes, and you start to see the sense. You start to see that reality. You can see why this is, because if reality existed outside again, we would all like the same things. We'd all behave in the same manner towards the same things. We would never fall out. Nobody would ever disagree. But the human mind is free. It's free. It can create mayhem and it can create joy. And you know what? It is just as easy for the mind to create joy as it is suffering.
And it's the same for everybody, isn't it? It's like when me and Dave were over in Manchester and I first realised this, and it really truly wasn't, we always say this, is it works like this for me, it works like this for everybody else, and it's, you know, everybody is innocent in their worlds because they can't be any different to how they are. It's just what shows up. And it's the same for everybody.
They can't be any different to what they're thinking.
And I think that was, and I know I always say it, but it truly was the biggest thing that I saw was the innocence in every single living human being, no matter what they were doing. Could see that they were lost, or they're not even lost. They were just being alive and experiencing what was coming through them at that time. And we sat in the city centre of Manchester. There just all these people walking around, and it was like, oh, the sun saw these separate little, or they're not separate, but all these little worlds, all these little realities. I remember seeing this couple storming through Manchester. She was obviously well pissed off with him, and he was like scuttling behind her. And it's like, wow. And then you go to the other side, and there's all these lads all sitting on the wall drinking, and they're having a different time. And it's like everybody was just having these little movies going on. You never know what's going on in someone's day, what the content of their day's been, or their moment is. So you can never I think once you see it within yourself, you see it within it, you see that it works this way for everybody else. It's no different. Yeah, none.
What does that buy you then? How does that make your life easier?
Miles easier. It means I can come across people who can be breathtakingly difficult. And yeah, there are times when I might have a little breathe and go, whew, but then there's that little thing that just reminds me every time. It might even be like a day later or something, or a week later, or it might be where I'm sitting having a full-on endurance test with somebody, going, wow, this is testing. But at the same time, when you know, or you have an idea of how your world works, you can see that if we're all saying everything's the same. So it's all just experience, isn't it? And like I told the story about that lady whose car had crashed into after I'd had a full body massage like that tonight, so it's spaced out, which is nice. And I crashed into someone's car. I didn't crash into it. Oh, she went absolutely completely nothing. I was so wasted. And I just remember this wave of calm just coming over me, and I was just looking at her, and all I just felt was so sorry that she was that distressed. But you can see it in people having arguments and see things bubbling under the surface, and it's never anything to do with you, it's just what's rocking through their world at that time. And I think that that's a valuable point, that we all work the same, which means I think one of the first things that I did was I forgave somebody who I didn't even realise I held a grudge against. It was somebody massively from the past. And all I did was see that they acted on a thought in the moment a really long time ago, but I just kind of held on to it as we do, because it's normal. And probably will hold on to things and let them go and catch and release, but
we don't tend to argue as a family either. We don't tend to go with sort of everybody's going to see things from a different angle.
I think we can blow and then laugh.
Yeah.
Or blow and it blows off. But
what's majorly gone for me is expecting someone to think the way I think. And that's completely gone. And that frees you from such a lot, because you don't expect anything. You don't expect anything of yourself.
Say that last bit again.
You let I don't know, I forgot what it's in there. What did I say? Yeah, no, you don't expect anything from anybody else. You don't expect them to see things the way that you see them. Like a typical example, why aren't they doing it this way? Or hang on a minute, they don't seem to be doing.
Why
what
would
I
you
expect.
do that?
Yeah,
why would you say that?
Yeah, that's the one. Then you think, well, they've said it.
So sometimes when I'm in a shavasana at yoga, I get these absolutely insane giggles, and I don't even know what I'm laughing at. But there's just something coming through me that makes me laugh to the point where I'm shaking and I'll be, oh no, I'm like, oh God, no. I'm not, there's nothing there. It's just empty space full of laughter.
You're just nuts.
Lisa's the only exception.
But there is. You see, there is no exception. You know, it's like when we talk about thought, it can be really easy to think we know what we're talking about. It is a beautiful question to start to ponder. What is thought? What is it? Oh, it's this, it's that, it's a picture, it's this, it's that. Those are thoughts. That's thinking. People want to analyze thinking. We want to treat thinking like a separate event, like buttermilk, like Krummaquar, like Loweswater, different thoughts. We want to study the waters. But again, when you go back to the spring, you find the answer for why all that exists. Why does Krummaquar, Buttermere, and Loweswater waterfalls, rapids, meanders, the flat plains exist? Well, it's because there's a spring on the side of Hastings. It's the only reason why it actually exists. Why is it reality exists? Well, because there is this conscious thinking state. What is that conscious thinking state? Where does it come from? Who invented it? Human beings didn't.
Human beings never invented consciousness. Human beings never invented thought. What are we getting back to? We're getting back to before ego. We're getting back to before our self-opinionated human being self.
With someone along the line just saying, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And it just being like, and you see that over certain things, like you have ridiculous thoughts, and you just let them go. Then there's other ones that you think, and you think they mean something, you think they're true, you think it's something different from water, and you hold on to it. But I remember this being such a powerful moment, like, why do I believe everything I think? And then you're like, well, actually I don't. There's loads of stuff that comes in that you just like, God, why do I think that? And then it goes. Like, I used to give stupid examples, especially with the kids, because they found it funny, but whenever I used to walk to college we'd park in a car park and walk over this big bridge over like a 4-lane road. And I just have this thought in my head, don't throw your keys off, don't throw your keys off. Like this random thought, as if I'd ever do it. But I'd like always hold on to my keys really tight in my pocket to make sure I didn't do it. And then I'd chuckle about it. But I never saw that as the same stuff as you're not good enough. You're never going to amount to anything. Like that was something different. Those thoughts I believed and thought that they were something else. And I think the nice thing about this is that suddenly it made everything the same. Like whatever comes into our mind will look and feel real. It's the nature of thought and consciousness coming together to create reality. It's called reality because it looks real. And as someone put online, now I just feel what a fool I've been, angry at people, yelling, irritating, being judgmental, etc., without any reason at all. I was just believing my thoughts in the moment. But you see how innocent it is, because what you think looks real, and then you act out of it. That's what you're always doing. And I think now, when you know that, it doesn't mean you're going to somehow step out of reality. You're still going to live in reality, but it feels like you open up to more. You start to see different. You have less judgment. You are more understanding, but not through effort. Like it's a good idea to not be judgmental. Just you start seeing innocence in people. Like when I'm caught up in whatever thinking's coming to me, that's real. That's the same for everybody else. So it's not that it's a good idea to be less judgmental. It's just it falls off your mind. Because you do start feeling foolish. You're like, God, why did I take that so personally? Why do I take other people's realities so personally? When they're literally living in the experience of their mind, with what looks real to them. And people have often said, well, doesn't that make you passive? Doesn't that make you let people walk all over you? It's like, no, we've got common sense. Like I know when someone's in a bad mood and maybe it's best I just take myself away. Like we'll say to each other, you'll be like, I'm in a bad mood. I'm probably not going to be that much fun today.
I've got depression this morning.
I'll say nothing nice is going to come out of my mouth today. Just ignore everything that I say. But it's like you get, I think you get more just playful and just not take it all as seriously. But it's not that stuff doesn't happen in life. Like I often say, like throughout the 15 years I've been learning about this, I've lost loved ones, changed career, been divorced, like stuff's happened. Moved from Essex to Cumbria and completely, like all of this stuff. So life still continues to happen. But there's been something throughout which I feel like has graced me through that. And even in the time, like one of the man who uncovered this, called Sydney Banks, one of his quotes, which I probably completely misquote, is something like, if the only thing that changed is we stopped fearing experience, the whole world would change. And I think you start to realise that what you're fearing is your own mind creation. The experience of fear comes from within us. There'll be times in life when that's really, really helpful, like if a car's coming towards us and we know to jump out of the way. So fear isn't pointless, but we all live in fear of a future, fear of something that's happened in the past. You start to see the unnecessary fear that we live out of. And I think you do that less. So it isn't this doesn't mean life suddenly stops and you see it all the time and you're never judgmental and you never get angry. But it feels like you have understanding throughout all of that, which changes relationships and families. And you never know what gift you might get given in terms of insight or things you see. Like whenever we've had groups and people share, what they share that's changed in their life might be different to somebody else who's been to the same group. Like what you see is perfect for your life. But where it's coming from is that same creative force of thought And I think when you know that thought's not limited in the same way, you just allow newness to come in. Like, I couldn't believe how stale my thinking was. I'd literally gone round and round and round and wanted it to be different and rethought things. Like, think about it, think about it, think about it, look for answers in old thinking. And it's like, it doesn't lie there. Like, if it did, in the 10 years of therapy, I would have got to the bottom of it. But I never did, because I was literally just thinking about old thinking. No one ever said to me, hang on a minute, that's really pointless. What about letting yourself be open to a new thought? And actually, as a being on this earth, you are completely built for new thought and insight, which is how you've learned everything throughout your life. And I think you go from looking at what's wrong with you to what's right with you. It's such a different focus. And what's different
that's
about
not a wishful thinking thing.
What's different about you to what's the same about us all. And I think that's been how we've managed to speak to people in any country that we've visited, from any walk of life, because you're not looking at the differences, you're not looking at the content of someone's life or their history. You're looking at how is life created for all of us, for all life. And when you start from there, then there isn't difference. Like you were saying at the beginning, there's a singular point from which all of this comes from. And I think when you look there, you go before your stories, before your identity, before who you think you are. And that blank canvas, again, it's not that it stays blank, because we'll keep creating. And I think that's been something for me that's been so interesting throughout this, because I'll get to a point of, oh my God, I've seen so much, got this sus. And then you're like, and then you get attached to that character of who you now think you are. And then at some point that crumbles, you're like, whoop, I never was that either. And then you create something else and something else. And that's just life.
Can you get the Gordell video?
Yeah, should we have a
Let's go
10-minute break?
play that and then go and have a break.
It'll take me a while.
Will it?
Yeah, if we do it after the break.
Right. We're going to take a 10-minute break.
So we'll go by the time on the computer. So 15:15, I come back at 25 past.
No, it's miles off that. That's the least. That's the furthest out.
Oh.
It's 10 past. So we'll come back at 20 past.
Come back in 10 minutes from whatever
10
time
minutes.
yours is.
Okay, so this is kind of playing on from where we left just before our break. We just want to play a video of a man that we worked with in South Africa. His name's Gordell. He was a refugee, and we're putting together a program in Burundi, which is on the outskirts, which is bordering, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is undergoing a massive civil war. And we've been asked to go out and talk to tribal and religious leaders about what is it that unifies everybody? What is it that creates war? And what is it that creates peace? And to gain understanding into the nature of life. And so Gordell is the man who's asked us, please, could you come out? And with Gordell and a couple of people in the DRC, a Catholic father and a bishop, we are looking to get eventually, hopefully, 300 tribal and religious leaders together to, in one place over a period of time, what is it that unites? What is it that divides? And when people, as I'm going to let Gordell explain, because I think he explains it far nicer than anybody else.
Yeah, we have to. We're definitely quite quiet as well.
Yeah.
It's quite recording.
Gordell's a man we worked with in South Africa who really heard into what we're talking about. And so he's a man who's been petrol bombed, he's been physically disabled, he's a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he now lives on the outskirts of Soweto, which is the largest township in South Africa. And so he's fully aware of the nature of what human beings are capable of. But,
Not murdered.
no, not this, not Gordell.
So it's quite quiet recording, I think.
So my country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, has a right to peace. And peace is an internal experience. Peace starts within us. It starts within you. It starts within me. So if for 1 second we can realize that we are part of one world, if we can realize that we are part of one God, if we can realize that we are born from one love, there will be no place for hatred. There will be no place for violence. There will be no place for war. We'll be living in a heaven. And the heaven is just a state of mind. And I believe that we can get there. DRC can get there. So I'm taking this opportunity to thank the couple of Dave Ellery and Jenny Anderson that made me connect to this truth. Thank you.
Are we still on? You know, one of the things that when I sat down with Gordell one day, and this interview is actually on our website, anybody can look at it on freedomthinking.co.uk. It's under media.
Yeah.
Under media. We interviewed Gordell. And I always remember Gordell saying, probably going to paraphrase a bit, but he said, this can change the world. And can you remember exactly what he said?
I don't know which bit you mean.
You know, he says, is it really that simple?
Oh, you said, is it really that simple, Gordell? And he said, I really don't think it's that complicated.
Something, yes. Sorry for really messing that up. But he did, he said he saw the simplicity of the nature of reality. And he was also a Catholic priest before he became physically disabled. He was a Catholic priest. He was training to be a Catholic priest in the DRC, but when he became physically disabled in the football game, he said in the Bible he cannot teach the word of God. So he fell out with God. He said, I fell out with God. He said, how dare he? He said, here's me putting in all this work, and just because I've broken my back, I can no longer talk about God. So he said, I fell out with God. He said, and for years I've hated God. And Gordell woke up one day when we were working out there. We went to go and work with his charity. And what he realized was the power of thought is creator. We are endowed with the power of pure creation within ourselves. We're endowed with the capacity to create heaven and hell. And Gordell realized, as he said on there, heaven is just a state of mind, as is hell.
Shakespeare said, didn't he? Mind creates heaven and hell.
That's right. It's like, but as he was taught as a Catholic, he said, I was taught heaven and hell are places you go to after death. He said, but I realized, no, heaven is a state of mind, and so is hell. We've all been to hell, and we've all found ourselves in heaven from time to time. And he said, all of a sudden, he said, this God that was far, far away from man, the God that I feared, the God that sat in judgment of me and judged all people, he said, I realized didn't exist. He said, I realized that somehow I am this God. I am this God that I feared. I created the fear. And it really is that simple. You know, we're always looking for reasons to blame our feelings on. And I've spoken about this before, but I distinctly remember the time when your nephew Archie, he built his little castle at the bottom of the stairs. Anybody that knows Lewin, there's a couple of people in this room who knows Lewin, knows she's like a tornado. She's so full of energy. And she ran down the stairs, and Archie was 3 years old at the time. And before this point, you could, if Archie had hold of something, say this pen, and you could just go, just take it off him. And Archie would go, pick up another thing or whatever. He didn't take it personally. He did not take it personally. He would, it was a neutral act. It was a neutral act. Pen's here, the pen's no longer there. Neutral act. And this was Archie until I witnessed this point where his sister ran down the stairs, saw his castle, poof, booted it across the room, disintegrated. And I watched Archie turn beetroot red before turning, just having this massive fit, stamping his feet, crying his eyes up. Oh, Lewin, you bad boy! He hadn't quite got the hang of gender at this point.
That's because his older brother called everyone bad boy.
Was it? Right. So Lewin was a bad boy. Technically a bad girl. All of a sudden he's got this rage, this feeling. And he's pinned the feeling on Lewin and the broken castle. That happened. That happened. I feel like this. That you make me feel like this. You do that. You make me feel bad. And this is where human beings end up. Then they go to school and they go, don't do that, you'll hurt their feelings. We get taught it. We get taught the idea that reality exists outside us and we are powerless over what people do to us. Like we're taught that people and circumstance create our experience of life. I remember being in school down in this school Jen and I went to work in, and it was in Special Measures was this school. So you meet some of the kids. But I remember this kid, we were talking about how words can't hurt you. And the kids are going, yeah, they can. You know, if somebody calls me a nasty name, it feels terrible. I'm like, okay, let's try this out. When I went to the feistiest kid in the class, who happened to be a girl, I'm like, hit me, come on, give me the worst. Probably best you don't swear in front of your teacher, but teacher, she is allowed to say whatever she wants to me. She cannot get into trouble for this. I want you to hit me, give me your worst. I was wearing my glasses, she looks at me, you've got girls' glasses on.
She's like crying.
I did, Ed. I did. I killed them on the floor and I cried. No. And then she carried on. What else did she say? You're ugly. My God, you're ugly. Why are you like
ridiculous hair?
Yeah, why is she with you? And stuff like this. And it was
Deceptive girl then.
Yeah, she's really, yeah, this girl was not blind. Yeah, and at the end of it, it was fantastic. And I can honestly say I really, really enjoyed the experience. It was really good fun. And I said, you know, that was really good fun. Thanks for that. Really good effort. 10 out of 10. But I tell you what, you haven't actually hurt my feelings. And we've said this to other people throughout time, you know, like, don't hurt my feelings. I remember this one kid, he looked at me and just looked at Rusty, my little dog, went, I'll kill your dog. I was like, that's the best one I've had yet. I'll kill your dog.
That's right, you win.
It was brilliant. It's like, that's genius, you psychotic. But you see, we're taught from a young age. External things make you happy. Money, circumstance, good jobs, partners, houses, places, holidays, weather. Being good at stuff, got to be the best. We're taught that external things are what is important. But it's funny because throughout history, there have been people who've come into this world who've gone, no, don't do that. Stop looking outside. Stop looking outside, people. What you need to do is you need to wake up. And how do you wake up? You wake up by turning around and not looking out there for the reason for why you feel so heartbroken right now, when you realize the castle itself cannot create a feeling. Somebody kicking a castle cannot create a feeling. It's somebody kicking a load of plastic. Like I remember a good friend of mine who once jumped into a van and he saw a cigarette lighter. All of a sudden he's like, I want a cigarette. And he was like, whoa, hold on a minute. I didn't want a cigarette a moment ago. Now I really feel the need for a cigarette. But that lighter can't do it. It's a piece of plastic, flint and gas. And in this moment, this good friend of mine who sat just there, Ed, he realized the nature of cravings, the nature of addiction. And this is why this is literally applies to everything. Because when you recognize that the lighter cannot create a craving, it's a piece of plastic, gas and flint, there has to be something else going on. And it's the invisible part. It's the part that we have looked through continuously since we were born. So why the hell would we consider looking at it? It's just, no, it's just what's going on. You know, we never think about what is the thing that unifies all things? Like, what is the thing that unifies Buttermilk, Crummock, waterfalls, blah, blah, blah? It's always water. What is it that creates addiction, thought? Can addiction exist without thought? If there is no thinking there about the substance. Like, for example, one of the things you once said to Ed, I think it was, you said, when do you feel better? You're like, well, when I've got cigarettes in my hand. So you haven't even smoked a cigarette at this point. You've just got them in your hand. Yeah. Where does the feeling come from? Where does the craving come from? Where does the feeling of satisfaction come from? You start to see there is just this singular point, and it is everything. It is literally everything. It's this moment right now. This is it. What people are sat in now is a pure state of consciousness that is coloured or flavoured by the way they're thinking about this talk. There'll be people sat in this room now who are so fucking miles away in their mind. Mark, come back to the room. They're so far away in their mind. They're not even in the room. They're thinking, oh shit, what am I going to do? Maybe pack lunch, got maybe buddies. Oh bollocks, I left my fella in. We had such a barney person today at work. You know, you see the mind. There'll be people in this room now whose mind is wandering all over the place. There'll be people sat in this room going, yeah, I get that. There'll be people in this room going, what the fuck is this?
Well, can I just say something? I was hanging on every single word you were saying, and obviously you're thinking, he's not listening to me.
No, I just wanted to pick on you.
So that's me thinking that then.
I just wanted to bully you a bit.
Kill your dog.
Kill your dog, yeah.
Somebody should have known.
Mum. But yeah, you start to see that this is the unifying point. This is the point that everybody's actually truly looking for. They're looking to make sense of life. They're looking for peace of mind. They're looking for happiness. They're looking for joy. They're looking for love. They're looking for connection. You know, none of that stuff exists outside of now. Because nothing exists outside of now. I've just been having a talk with Sarah just before, and we were talking about there is nothing outside of now, and there never has been. I'm not saying the past didn't exist. No, yesterday existed, but it doesn't exist now. We can't jump on a plane and fly back to tomorrow. But fly back to yesterday, back to the future, you go. We can't fly back to yesterday because it doesn't exist. The illusion of yesterday is created now by a thought, call it memories. And likewise with the future, like 9 o'clock, it's in 15 minutes time. It doesn't exist.
In this country?
In this country, yeah. But you start to see that thought does not exist in time. Time exists in thought. We treat time as though it's a force of nature. It's not. It doesn't exist. There is only, throughout the entire universe, there is only this very moment. There is only the illusion of time created by the illusion of thought. Aging truly doesn't exist. There's just change. In this universe, there's just change. And change is the constant of energy. And that's what this universe is, it's energy. People go, all right, I get that, yeah, okay. We're all energy, brilliant, I get that. Okay, what's energy? What is this energy stuff? You start to realize you cannot understand it. So what we are truly sat in is divine mystery. The entire universe is a divine, inexplicable event. And we're that. Always born of formlessness. Everything we see in this world is form, physical. Every single thing we think and feel is form. Every single thought is a manifestation of the power of consciousness. It's born and then it dies. Same as me. Same as trees. Same as planets, same as suns. Everything is a finite existence. Everything in the world of form has a finite existence. Every single solar system, every single sun, star, every single living thing, every single rock has a finite existence. Every single experience has a finite existence. That's really beautiful to know. It's such a beautiful thing to know that the true nature of matter is change. The true nature of the material world is change. The true nature of experience is change. Which means we're never stuck with the same feeling forever. Because forever doesn't exist in a created thing. Forever only exists in the power of creation. The force before the form takes place. And for people who get a glimpse of it, they start to realize it truly is a timeless place. It truly is the place where the entire universe gets dreamt into being. And we're all that. And anybody who happens to find themselves in that place will find themselves. But they find the self of every single self that exists. And it's not a state that isn't what we are now. It is the state of what we are now, minus thought.
Hello, Dave.
Hiya, mate. How are you doing? Hiya, Mr. T. Welcome.
Yeah, this is Mr. T.
How are you doing?
Are you getting me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Mr. T. I have two things to tell you now at this time.
Okay.
So first, I would like to introduce my friend of mine. Now is joining this meeting for the first time from Ottawa. His name is Richard.
Hiya, Richard.
And sorry?
Your line just broke up then, Mr. T. Welcome, Richard. Mr. T, can we have a conversation once this group's finished?
Or do you have a question?
Or do you have any questions?
Yes. First, I wanted to introduce a friend of mine who is talking from Ottawa. Secondly, I wanted to talk about what Mr. Godel has been talking about. Mr. Godel was, according to what he was talking about, is really true. So, if I try to compare what he was been talking about and the freedom of thinking, there's somehow a little bit difference, because according to the freedom thinking, we are supposed to be living the present, because we are not be the past was not supposed to be having any impact on our present life. But because our past, especially in that region, is following us each and every day. That is the reason why is somehow there is a little bit difference between the freedom of thinking and what is happening there in the region.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Now
Yeah.
that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
So what Mr. T was just pointing to just then, just forgive me one moment, I'm just going to explain to the room of people. What Mr. T was explaining just then was that there is a difference, as Mr. T sees it. There is another beautiful man, by the way, a man we got to meet out in South Africa, a man who has been through an awful lot. But he was saying there's a difference between what freedom thinking talks about and what's happening in the Congo. I would like to just, for a moment, consider the true power of thought. You know, let's go back to school again. When we go back to school, we can remember people who perhaps had what we call behavioral issues. Okay, so we then, I remember there were people in my school who had these behavioral issues. And so they were taken to one side and they were trying to change their behavior. Now, that is a truly fruitless task. And I'll just explain to you why. And I'll explain why there is no difference between the mind and conflict, the mind and war, the mind and behavior. When we try and change behavior, for example, when we try to bring about an end to people behaving in a certain way that we don't like, whether that be the school bully, whether that be conflict, war resolution, whether it be road rage, whether it be violence, whatever it is. When we treat behavior, you could liken it to, if you were to build a house, you could liken it to building a house. By trying to treat behavior, which is so often what people try and do, it's like trying to build a house by starting with a roof. There's a logic to building the house. And that is not the logical way to start to build a house, by starting with the roof. Okay, first of all, to logically start to build a house, you need to have some foundations. And the next thing you would build will be the walls that sit in the foundations. The last thing that you would put on will be the roof. But people are so adamant about treating behavior. So they go about trying to treat behavior. And quite often I remember the people who have behavioral issues at the beginning of school still had these behavioral issues at the end of school. Because no understanding was brought. No understanding was brought to the individual to help them. But when you look at building a house and you realize, well, there truly only is one sensible way to build a house, and that is to have some foundations. And you could call those foundations thought. And what do thought create? They create the experience we're living, they create feelings, emotions. Yeah, emotions, experience. Okay. Now, no war can take place without first having a thought. No rifle can be loaded without thought. No step can be taken towards other people without thought. Thought is everything. It's the way we learn, it's the way we create our beliefs, it's where we create our ego. It's what everything is. Everything we experience is thought. It's the only thing we ever experience. I'm holding a pen. I know I'm holding a pen, but I only know it because I am a conscious state that thinks. Without this consciousness and thought, I would have no awareness of the pen or the fact it's a pen. So you start to see there is only one singular place to look. And when people have this cleared up, when people have this misunderstanding cleared up, when people realize that their behavior, whether it be addiction, whether it be violence, whether it be cutting themselves, whether it be whatever the behavior that they don't like, fasting, like beating themselves up with running, sport, whatever. When people wake up and they start to realize it's all thought. It is all thought. It's all experience is created from thought. Every single bit of hatred is a thought. Every single bit of mistrust is a thought. When they start to make that connection, they start to come back to reality, the true reality. The castle cannot create my experience. The behavior cannot create my experience. The only thing that creates experience is thought. Create feelings, emotions, and experience, which then I will behave out of. I cannot punch somebody in the face without first having a thought, whether I am aware of that thought or not. It takes thought to create the movement. It's thought holding this pen right now. It's unconscious thought. It's what people call the subconscious. It's still thought. It's just thought you don't see. It's thought you're not aware of. But it's still thought. It's thought. And so when we start to get to the ground level, to the foundation of reality, you realize it is a conscious state thinking. And from that, every single emotion, every single feeling we undergo, every single bit of hatred, war, feeling state towards one another, every single bullet that's fired comes via thought. Every single experience of being fired at comes via thought. There is only thought. Clear this mess up. Clear this mess up. You've got an awesome structure. You've got an awesome structure for reality when you start to wake up and realize what it is, when you start to wake up and realize it is all thought. To clear up the problems of South Africa, to clear up the problems of, I've mentioned this a few times, but we were at a soup kitchen in Cape Town, and our friend came to us and said, the problem's too big, 300 homeless people, that's not even scratching the surface of the problem that South Africa faces of homelessness. The problem's too big. We said, no, it's not. The problem isn't too big. The problem looks too big when we look outside of consciousness and we look to the world and we go, well, it needs more money, it needs more houses, it needs more this, it needs more that, it needs more people like offering these jobs to those people, it needs all that. Yeah, then it looks really, really complicated. But when you realize, no, South Africa, and this is what we said to it, no, South Africa will change when people's thinking changes. Because the only reason why South Africa looks as it does now is because of the way people think about one another. When people think differently about one another, they appear different, they behave different towards them. Feel different about them, so they behave different towards them. Everybody's trying to change the world. But in Buddhism and Hinduism, they go, don't try and change the world, change yourself. Yeah, because the moment you change yourself, the world changes. Because the world you see is a reflection of your own mind. The world you see is a conscious state, thinking that is the only way you can possibly see the world. And that's why when people wake up, their whole world changed. They will go, the world's changed. But the world hasn't changed. The world is a neutral event. It is flavored by the way we think about it. We are a neutral event. How we appear to ourselves is thought. And so there is no difference between what people call freedom thinking, our business, and our three principles, and mind and war. War is not separate to mind. War is created by mind. Understand mind. You start to see, as Godel spoke about, the logic of war. Hatred, judgment, fear, they're all thoughts. There is a direction to this. And when people start to wake up and they start to find this place within themselves, they generally come and they say, I find myself in a far more loving place, far more accepting place, and people change. There's this saying in the Bible, God is love. It's a very specific statement. God is love. Bearing in mind, I'm not talking about any man with a beard on a cloud, separate. I'm talking, when I say God, I'm saying the force that underpins the entire universe. The only time I ever experience fear is when I go into either the future or the past, or into circumstance and believe that that is affecting me. That is the only time that fear is created. And when I talk about fear, I'm talking about anger, sadness, grief. I'm talking about worry, anxiety, jealousy. It's always when I pin my emotions onto something, negating the power of thought. But the moment I come back and realize, wow, Dave, you're off, you've done it, you've been lost. You're lost in your own mind again. You are so lost in the idea that reality exists outside for that moment. The moment I come back to that, I come back to a state of peace, understanding and connection, because I'm back in true reality. All fear is created from us buying wholeheartedly into the illusion of life. It's the only place fear actually exists, when we buy into the illusion of life. When we come back into the true state of life, what is left is a state of love. And what comes with love? It comes acceptance, understanding, forgiveness, all the beautiful things we truly celebrate in people, humility. It's all found in love. And love is the natural state, because when somebody comes back to truth, another word for God in the Bible is truth. God is truth, God is love. They're all the same thing. And so it really is as simple as that. All fear is born from the idea of an external reality, a time-based external reality, as opposed to there is no experience outside of our mind now. You'd have to get that totally wrong. There is no experience outside of our mind. Yes, I think that's right.
So I was getting back to a question.
Yeah, there is no experience outside of our mind now. There is only this very present moment. Conscious state thinking now, that's what the entirety of reality has always been. It's what it will be for the rest of our lives. And we are never what we think we are. It's another beautiful thing to know. We are never whatever we think we are, and neither is anybody else, and neither is this world. It is not what we think it is. Thought's creation. A thought is creation. A belief is creation. And we're talking about the creator. Again, another biblical word, the creator is God. God is the creator. We are the creator. This is the thing that Godel realized within himself. I am that God. Everybody is God. Everything is God. You realize it is a spiritual reality, not a material reality. It is a spiritual reality disguised as a material reality. What looks like a physical world of events and circumstances, actually, when you boil it down, is a vibration of energy. Back to energy again. What is energy? Well, God is energy. It's all the same thing. It's all mystery. It can never be understood with the intellect. It will never be understood with the intellect. Again, the intellect is creation. You cannot see creator with creation. All you will see is creation. This is why there's nothing to do. If we go in search of this with our mind, you won't find it. It's not there. It's too late. We're in creation. So this new year, new you. We're always a new us. But the true us is a timeless thing. The ego comes and goes, it changes, it chops and changes, it likes what this time, and likes that time. The ego is just a ball of thoughts. The ego is simply how we believe the world to be. And that comes and goes, and as in doing so, so does our personality change. Well, I like this now. I don't like that. I love this music. I like them. I don't like that. They're assholes. They're brilliant. That's all ego. Ego is just the way we perceive the world to be. That's all the ego is. Beliefs. That's what the ego is. It's not who we are. Who is the force that observes the ever-changing beliefs, the ever-changing thoughts? What's that? Nobody is ever whatever they think they are. They're far greater than anything they can comprehend. They are truly divine mystery. They truly are God. They're the force of creation itself, lost in the idea within what it's created. It gets lost. It locates itself as thoughts, as beliefs, problems. But the moment it wakes up and goes, holy shit, I am not those thoughts. I am not the way I think. I am the thinker. Or as some mystics would say, this is the dream of life. I go, what is a dream if it isn't thought? This is a dream of life. Wake up, you're the dreamer.
Free.
Everybody's free. One second. You've done
Said
it.
you'll email because I thought it was too big a conversation to start.
Thank you, Mr. T. Thank you, everybody online.
I said you're staying for me, Mr. T and Richard.
Yeah. Well, Mr. T, can I possibly, can I give you a bell tomorrow? Can we speak tomorrow? Is that possible? Thank you, everybody. Let's stop recording.